DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com. You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
Every dog lover knows the telepathy between man and his best friend. That doggy sixth sense that has them loving on you when you're sad and even seeming to anticipate your commands. But how did dogs get to be so excellent at communicating with people in the first place? On today's show, we're talking about a new study that shows puppies are born ready to communicate with people.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is DogWorks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michele Forto.
Hello and welcome to DogWorks Radio. This is your host, Michele Forto, and I'm the lead trainer of Alaska Dog Works, where we help humans and dogs have better relationships. If you are like me, when you brought your new puppy home, you were certain that he understood everything you said, right? Well, there is science to back that up. Putting puppies' communication skills to the test. A new study from the Arizona Canine Cognition Center at the University of Arizona has answers. For the study, which was funded in part by the AKC Canine Health Foundation, researchers put 375 8-week-old puppies through 4 tests designed to establish whether even such tiny pups were receptive to human communication. Crucially, these dogs had never spent a significant amount of time with humans before. In training to be canine companion service dogs, they had spent their 2 months of life cuddled up with their mothers and fellow puppies. The hypothesis was that if dogs this young and with this little exposure to humans were able to tune into human communication, that communication must come hardwired instead of being learned. So, could they? In a word, yes. First, researchers tasked the puppies with finding a treat hidden in a cup, having made sure both cups smelled of treats so the pups couldn't just follow their noses. They found that the dogs were able to follow both human pointing and humans placing a yellow block near the correct cup, finding the treat an average of 67% of the time for both tasks. Significantly more than the 50% you'd expect by pure chance. Each dog completed each task 12 times, and the researchers found that they did not improve over the course of the trials, further confirming that this behavior is not learned but innate. Next, researchers ran 2 tests to find out how likely puppies are to make eye contact with humans or gaze at their faces. Their first question: how likely are they to gaze at us when prompted? Researchers spoke to the pups in dog-directed speech, essentially baby voice, for 30 seconds and found that the puppies made eye contact with them for 6 of those 30 seconds, suggesting that they really were interested in the researchers' attempts to communicate with them. Earlier studies have shown that older dogs pay even more attention to dog-directed speech, suggesting that while this interest is innate, it's also something dogs learn to engage in more as they get older. Finally, they tested how likely dogs are to engage humans in their own accord through a test known somewhat dauntingly as the unsolvable task. The puppies were given a treat sealed in a transparent box and monitored as they tried to access it. Earlier tests have shown that while wolves do not look to humans for guidance in this situation, adult dogs do. These itty-bitty puppies were somewhere between those extremes. They do make eye contact, but only for about a second over the 30-second trial, says Dr. Emily E. Bray, the study's lead author. So the tendency, you could say, is there, it's present, but it's not very strong at all. Bray compares this tendency to human children who are receptive to adult guidance from a very young age, but take longer to seek it out independently. So, were dogs bred to converse with humans? It's an age-old question. Just how did dogs get to be so well suited to human companionship and communication? Well, it's long been reasonable to assume that earlier humans selected and bred dogs for their communicative abilities. This new research is a vital new piece in the puzzle. Crucially, the researchers didn't stop at studying the puppy's average abilities. They also studied each puppy's individual abilities using the detailed genetic history available from canine companions. That leg of the study revealed that any given dog's communication skills are up to 40% heritable from their parents and lineage, an extremely high rate for heritable trait. Given all this, it's not so hard to see how dogs became man's best friend. I think it definitely suggests that their receptivity to our social signals is something that probably was selected for over the course of domestication, Dr. Bray told us. That is something that has evolved over time. Canine super communicators, the dogs of the future. It seems likely that our ancestors bred highly communicative dogs partly for work roles like hunting and herding, which rely on their being highly attuned to human commands and behavior. Today, there's less demand for hunting and herding dogs, but this research still has a highly valuable application. The puppies tested were bred by canine companions to be service dogs, and yet, as Dr. Bray told us, probably only 50 to 60% of them will be successful. Remember, there's 375 participating in this study. Since communicating with humans is at the core of service dogs' work, being able to breed for communication skills could someday help canine companions and similar organizations to provide more highly communicative pups to people in need. There's still more research to do, having discovered that this trait is heritable. Dr. Bray and her colleagues are now trying to establish exactly how it's inherited. Which genes is it coded into? That information will give breeders of service dogs and companion pets a much greater ability to select highly communicative dogs for breeding. Until then, there's always the old-fashioned method, which so many generations of humans seem to have used before us, befriending and breeding those pups who seem to understand what we say as if by magic. Does your pup understand what you're saying? I know mine does. One last thing. Did you know the single best thing you can do is tell your family and friends about our show? Why don't you send them a link to this episode? Ask them if they think that their dog understands what they're saying. And guess what? I bet they'll become a rabid listener just like you. I'm Michele Forto for Dogworks Radio. Thanks for listening.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is DogWorks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michele Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media. Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michele Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.